Welcome, everyone. We will begin shortly. Thank you for your patience as we were waiting for everyone to arrive. My name is Veronica Aplenc. I'm co-chair of the Center City Residents Association Zoning Committee, and this is our May meeting, and we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask everyone to mute themselves for now, and then we will ask you to unmute at the appropriate times. As you can see, this meeting is being recorded. So I would like to begin our meeting with a short introduction. Welcome to the Center City Residents Association Zoning Committee. The CCRA is a 75-plus-year-old nonprofit civic association. As a nonprofit, we encourage everyone to become a member, which can easily be done through our website. There are several benefits to being a member, one of which is being notified of all proposed zoning changes within our area. CCRA is the recognized registered community organization, RCO, for our area. Our boundaries are from South Street to JFK Boulevard and Broad Street to the Schuylkill River. Our committee works as follows. First, applicants are to present. We ask applicants address the specific refusals or referrals, and we ask for no interruptions as applicants give their full presentation. After the presentation, the zoning committee will have a chance to ask questions. After the zoning committee's questions are completed, we open the meeting to the community. When addressed, please state your name and address. We ask that you keep your questions succinct and to the variance being discussed. We also ask that people do not repeat others' questions. If you agree with someone's position, you are welcome to stand and simply state that you agree. If there is a spokesperson for the neighbors, we ask that this person speak first for the group. After we hear from all applicants and listen to the community comments, our committee meets in closed session. We vote in one of three ways: oppose, not oppose with provisos. CCRA never votes in favor of any application. Our decision is emailed to the councilperson, the ZBA, and the applicant, and is also posted on the CCRA website. Importantly, no matter how we decide, if you are concerned with a project, we strongly recommend that you attend the ZBA hearing. This is the best way to make your concerns known. The CCRA Zoning Committee cannot express the neighbor's point of view. Only a property owner or a aggrieved individual may express their personal concerns to the ZBA. And with that, I would like to turn to the first of our three applicants, and we will follow the order in our agenda. And the first applicant is 250 South Broad Street. This is the application for an erection of 5 flat wall signs for the erection of 2 animated illumination digital projecting signs, all accessory to an existing theater on the same lot with all other uses as previously approved. And this is a refusal because of the reasons for which are: signs with animated illumination are prohibited within 200 feet of any intersection or any 2 or more streets. And then sign regulations: animated illumination signs are prohibited within the Center City commercial area. And the proposed projecting sign is prohibited in this zoning district. And this is a refusal, meaning that the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate why the community should accept the change. So with that having been said, I welcome our applicant for this particular project. And so for 250 South Broad Street.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is Stephanie Magana. I'm an attorney with Claire Harrison here on behalf of the Kimmel Cultural Center, which owns and operates the Miller Theater at 250 South Broad, which is the theater, the subject of this application. I'm joined tonight by Jennifer Stark, who's with Kimmel, and Kelly Jennings, who's with Exit Design, who has designed the signs as well. So thank you for the overview of the refusals. But again, so this is accessory signage being proposed to the Miller Theater. As I'm sure you're familiar, the Miller Theater had a recent name change last year from the Miriam Theater to the Miller Theater. Upon the name change, there was some temporary change of copy signage that was put up. And this application is our permanent sign change, intended to kind of formally rename the theater, the Miller Theater, and kind of place permanent signage there to replace what is currently meant to be temporary. So I have some images here I'll pull up and share my screen if I can. And then I will let Kelly go through our package, and then we can certainly answer any questions that anybody has after we go through this. So please let me know if you can't see that. But again, so this is our refusal that you already went through, but again, kind of as a summary. So we are proposing 5 or 7 accessory signs here, all facing South Broad Street. There are 5 flat wall signs that are intended to replace, what's existing and identify the theater, and then 2 digital projecting signs, which will be along the side of the existing marquee because they're placed on the side of the marquee. They're designated as projecting signs, and they will have a digital component, which is the reason for the refusals. And we'll explain that in a second. So this is just to orient you of where we are on the Kimmel Cultural Center. We have the Academy of Arts, immediately to our left, and the Kimmel Center below us. And these are existing photos that will show you, as I'm sure you're familiar with being in the neighborhood, what the temporary signage that's currently there looks like, what was put up to replace the Miriam Theater signage when this went through. And you'll see on the plans kind of an example of pictures of what was previously approved and went through the formal city process. But that brings us to our plans, and I'll let Kelly go through this and she can specify, but we are asking for relief for the digital component and the projecting sign component of this. But to clarify, what we are looking to do is to replace this signage that you can see along the side of either side of the existing marquee with a digital screen sign that will identify the upcoming show and the time of the show. And only those 2 things, to change only so frequently as the programming of the show itself changes, with the possibility of there being, a Miller Theater name kind of placed on that digital sign in the time where there isn't an immediately upcoming show. So this is not meant to function as an advertising sign, certainly in the traditional sense of the word, but simply to kind of convey like traditional theater signs, the upcoming show and the time, but with a modern spin on it that will allow us to change copy as the show changes. And that is certainly something Kimmel is committed to, and we're happy to see that show up in the form of a proviso to this application at the zoning board. The programming of this sign is meant to be very limited, despite its digital component. So I'll leave that to Kelly now to go through the plans. I'll scroll through them as she wants me to, and we can come back for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks everyone for having us tonight. I'm going to walk you through the designs. This first page here is showing you the existing signage. Of course, there's some temporary signage there now, but this is what was there before. So I'm sure you're all familiar with it. But sign B, the center sign there that says Miriam Theater, just as a reminder, that was a facelit sign. So the letters were actually illuminated on the Miriam Theater portion of the front sign. And then on either side, these were externally illuminated signs. So spotlights had these signs that say the University of the Arts Miriam Theater that you're seeing on either side here. We're also calling out A and C are existing poster signs. Those aren't changing, but of course we're showing you those on these diagrams throughout the package. So Stephanie, I can.
Yeah, Kelly, can you just note the signage area real quick? This is our zoning compliance chart.
Sure. Absolutely. So you'll see that the frontage of the Miller Theater is just over 90 feet, and our allowable square foot of signage is 402 feet and 10 inches. So we'll show you a comparison of old and new square footage in a couple of pages as well. But you'll see that, sign A and C, I believe those are, A and C are the poster signs. So both of those are flat wall signs, are not illuminated. Sign B is a flat wall sign. Those were the illuminated letters that we talked about that said Merriam Theater on them. And then D and E were the two sides that were both existing letters that said the Merriam Theater, and that's where we'll show you that we're proposing the digital screen to make a changeable message for the shows.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Okay, I'll scroll as you want me to, so just direct me.
Okay, sounds good. So the proposed signage that we're showing here, just to kind of walk you through each of these, we are proposing to really clean up this facade, so painting the facade structure, but we are not changing the structure at all. So you'll see that the details below the canopy, as well as the finial on top, all of those are remaining, but we're just affecting the face of the canopy. So that will be cleaned up and painted a black color there. And the Miller letters will be dimensional letters that are applied to that face. They have a light anodized finish there that I'll show you in more detail. And those will be illuminated, rear illuminated. So I'll show you some details around that, as well as the two theater letters on either side. D and E are those projecting LED signs. And so again, like Stephanie said, our goal here really is to clarify the shows that are playing at this theater. One of the things that has been an issue for Kimmerell Cultural Campus is that people oftentimes show up to the wrong theater. So we want to make sure it's very clear what is playing in the theater that night or that next day. These are not meant to be rotating or changing. They're just going to change when the show changes. And like Stephanie said, if the theater is dark, it may say Miller Theater there as a placeholder. And then A and C below are those poster signs that we talked about. So Stephanie, you can go to the next page, which just shows the comparison between the two, the existing permanent signage versus the new proposed signage. The difference in square footage there, let me just look at my cheat sheet here, is just a little bit over 9 feet. It's 9.71 square feet difference between what was there and what we are proposing.
Yeah, and if you'll notice, one of the reason for that difference, Kelly, as I'm sure you can confirm, is the theater that's on the either side of Miller on the main part of the marquee is not on the existing signage and is on the new signage.
Exactly. Yep. So we're adding the word theater on either side of that front canopy.
And the front is static illumination, or is it going to be illuminated externally?
Correct. So the Miller Theater, and actually in a couple pages, we can see that probably with some more detail. So let's click through and I can go through the details of how each of those letters are created. So first, we're looking at the side LED screens here. You can see that the background of these screens is black with white type. We're keeping it as simple and legible as possible there, and really fitting it into the side of that canopy. So we really want it to be as elegant and integral feeling as possible. And we talked about how that would change when the show changes. And then the next page, I believe, will show us those Miller letters. So those Miller letters there are an anodized finish. They're a light bronze finish, and they're halo lit fabricated letters. So in the renderings below, you can kind of see at night, they will illuminate from behind. So they're not face illuminated like the Merriam Theater letters were, but they are halo lit like you're seeing there to the right. And they're 2 feet, 2.5 inches high, those Miller letters there. And then the theater words on either side, those are face lit acrylic letters. Those are 5 3/4 inches high. And like you see there, they're on either side of the word Miller. And so at night, you can see that those illuminate their face while the Miller is halo illuminated. And they're just a white acrylic. And then lastly, those poster cases are remaining. We're just showing them here as they are, but we're not making any changes to those.
Okay, great, thanks. I think with that, we'll turn it over. Any questions? I'll pull up our renderings here so we can see those as we kind of go through questions if anybody has any.
All right, well, thank you very much. That's a very clear and thorough presentation. What we'll do now is that I will call on members of the zoning committee and ask if they have any questions. And after we go through the zoning committee, then I'll open it up to the public, and we'll use the raise hand feature. So starting at the beginning, Charles Robin, do you have any questions? Charles,
just one question. Can you hear me? Just one question. Yeah. Signs D and E, which are on the side, do you have hours for illumination?
You mean like the hours that they would be illuminated?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll ask Jennifer Stark, who's with Kimmel, to confirm. But the plan would be that the sign advertised the show that is upcoming and the time of the show. Overnight, and any period where there would not be a show immediately upcoming, it would say Miller Theater.
So it's on, the full night.
Yeah, so it would be consistent with the other signage along Broad Street at the theaters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Miller? No questions. Flora Becker? No questions. Rick Pasquier?
No questions.
Steve Rubin?
No questions, thanks.
Ben Weinrow?
Yeah, quick, more comment than question. Great presentation. Just a question. The material of the actual building facade, I don't know if it's real stucco, drive it, whatever. But just pointing something out from my retail background, since as we have more hotels and condos and things that are vertical in Philly, especially along Broad, you guys have 6 shadow boxes above the actual theater canopy. Do you ever look at that potentially of within the language of the building material? You happen to have 6 and Miller happens to be 6 letters, maybe taking advantage of that so that the folks in the hotels and condos across the street could also have something of their scale to view from above.
That's above my pay grade, so I'll ask Jennifer Stark from Kimmel to answer that question.
Good evening, everybody. That's an interesting idea. We are actually about to commence the construction document phase of our facade repair work for this building. We can talk to the architects about the feasibility and what the visual impact would be. And then conversely, we'd ask Stephanie to take a look at the zoning to see what's allowable for square footage remaining for us. But thank you for the suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Ben? No.
Thank you.
All righty. Bob Lane?
No questions, thanks.
Andre Geffen?
No questions, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'd like to now open it up to the members of the community. So if you're a member of the community and you're interested in asking a question, please use the raise hand feature, and you can find that under the reactions button on the bottom of your screen. I see a question or a raise hand from our council, Wade Albert. I'll call on you first.
Hey, thank you very much. So question, I appreciate that the applicant would be willing to consent to a proviso regarding, I guess, limiting what content is shown on these signs. And specifically, I'm assuming some sort of an agreement that advertising for things that are not shows would not be on these signs. Can you tell me, I mean, specifically what sort of, because we want to get this right and we don't want to send proviso language and have to dispute that, or, have any sort of questions about what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. Can you just let us know right now what sort of proviso language you would be amenable to as to the advertising matter?
Yeah, well, certainly by sign type, this would be an accessory sign. So anything that is shown on the sign would obviously be limited to things that are actually occurring at the Miller Theater. So by nature of this being an accessory sign and not a billboard, it would be limited to the shows and the programming that's at Miller Theater and not any kind of external advertising. So that's part of the type of sign. So when we're talking about a proviso, it would be a limit to the time frame, like the content would be, subject to the content being limited to the show, the show programs and the time of the shows that are being, held at the Miller Theater. I would defer to Jennifer on the exact, I don't think it could be, 2 weeks between shows, or it could be a few hours, depending on whether they have, different shows on the same day, but it would certainly be nothing like every 5 minutes or 10. This is hours, days, or weeks between change. So I'd ask Jennifer to confirm that, but what we're looking to do is to confirm that the programming of the sign is going to be limited to the shows and the time of the shows that are showing at Miller Theater, and change no more frequently than the upcoming show. And we'd also be able to, this should be able to say Miller Theater when those shows aren't coming up, but that would be the very limited extent of the content that would be here. And that is certainly a proviso that we'd be comfortable with in any form of that proviso. As long as it gives us the flexibility to change as the show programming changes.
Yeah, and I don't think that I don't want to speak for everybody. I would be surprised if people had issues about how frequently that changed, if it's, every day or whatever. But I just think that the main issue is just to confirm in a proviso that the signs will not be used for third-party advertising. So for,
Absolutely. And quite frankly, that would be not only a violation of the zoning code, but also of PennDOT regulations. So this would never have non-accessory content as being part of the sign. To the extent anything is more closely related to the Miller Theater or something else outside of, the Kimmel Cultural Campus, this is very specifically intended to be the upcoming show and the time of the show, or simply to say Miller Theater, to kind of serve as a wayfinding method for visitors and customers to the theater. There's obviously reasons why digital signs are regulated rather strictly, certainly along Broad Street. And we want to be very careful to make sure that we're distinguishing these signs from what you might think of when you think of a digital sign.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the community? I don't see any raised hands. If any community member wishes to ask a question, they're welcome to unmute themselves. Making sure we catch any community questions. Well, I don't see any. Well, Stephanie.
Sorry, I thought my hand was up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Can you state, please, happy to hear your question. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Rick Getlin. I live at 119 South Van Pelt Street in Philadelphia.
And your question, sir?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious. We're here because the name is changing. Are there any contracts or agreements that will cause the name to change again at some point in the future, or is there a time
we're here because we're asking for a digital sign.
If I may, excuse me, and I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Rick, I want to thank you for your question. I just want to confirm that the purpose of this committee meeting is to focus on zoning issues. And I think your question is a very interesting one. I think that it may fall outside the scope of what we focus on.
And thank you. I think the reason
am I able to respond?
Mr. Getlin, before you, Stephanie, you may not need to answer. You live on Van Pelt Street, which is very far from Broad Street. How are you a party affected by this application, other than being interested like any citizen would be?
Yeah, I think I'm just interested as a Philadelphian, and not necessarily do I have a window that is facing this address. If that answers your question, Bob.
It does, but I don't know whether that's Veronica. Is that what we're entertaining?
Well, thank you for the question. We always want to hear all of the community voices. We also have a strong interest in focusing on zoning. Now, Stephanie, I think that I cut you off, so I'm sorry. Let me turn the floor over to you. There might have been something that you wanted to say. And again, our focus is on zoning. And if something falls outside of our focus, that's not something that the meeting is able to address.
Absolutely. And I'm going to stay focused on zoning. I just wanted to answer the zoning component of this question for anybody else in the audience who had it. So zoning does not regulate content. It regulates the outside of something being accessory or non-accessory, meaning it's advertising something that's happening on the property for purposes of signage. Outside of that, it's not a zoning issue. So this application and why we're here is about the digital component of this sign. Other than that, change of copy is not a zoning issue. Changes in the size, the location, and the type of signages.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. I think that's very helpful. Are there any other questions? I see none. Well, Stephanie, I want to thank you and all of your team for a very clear and thorough presentation. Thank you for that. And now I'd like to move on to the second case that we have on our agenda. So thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. If anybody has any questions, the board does have my contact information. We'll be happy to answer anything that comes up after the meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'd now like to turn to 1807 Chestnut Street, which is the second of our properties that we're hearing. And this is the application for a prepared food shop on first floor with all other uses as previously approved in an existing structure. This is a referral, and the reason for the referral is the proposed use, prepared food shop, requires a special exception on Chestnut Walnut Street area west. And I'd just like to remind our group that in the case of a referral, the burden is on the community why not to accept the zoning change. So now I'd like to turn it over to representatives of 1807 Chestnut Street. Mr. Goldberg, I think.
Yep, thanks, Veronica.
Let me turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. My name is Alex Goldberg of Knockhamson PC. I'm here with Doug and Sarah Taylor, who are the owners of Taylor Chip, which is the business that we are seeking the special exception for at 1807 Chestnut Street. John is also in the audience, who is the manager of growth and retail systems for their organization. So hopefully between the three of us, we can answer any questions that you have. As Veronica said, it is a special exception. Thank you for giving the explanation on exactly how that differs from a legal perspective. Although, as you know, in terms of this process, it looks exactly the same. So we have a presentation for you tonight. First is the notice of referral, just one reason for referral. That's due to the overlay that requires a special exception for a prepared food shop. Then a couple exhibits talking about the company itself. I'll give you sort of some high-level points about that after the presentation. If you don't mind, Doug and Sarah will briefly introduce themselves, and then I imagine throughout any questions they can help elaborate on any details that I may have left out. A zoning map of the area, some photographs, the architectural plans and drawings, the meeting notice, the lease, and the application for a special exception. The lessee here is Taylor Chip, LLC. One more thing, the ZBA hearing is scheduled for August 2nd at 2 o'clock. So here's our notice of referral. It was issued in March. You can see in all caps here, for prepared food shop on the first floor with all other uses as previously approved. And then again, due to the supplemental use controls of the overlay that applies here, we are required to get a special exception. Okay, so Taylor Chip is the name of their company. They started out informally in Lancaster, PA in 2015. When Sarah and Doug started dating, they quit their jobs in 2018 and opened up a cookie stand at a local market. Since that time, they've been awarded grants. They've grown dramatically. They are hoping to get into the ice cream business as a part of Taylor Chip's business. Cookies and ice cream go great together. Here are some points about the growth at Taylor Chip. So they have plans to grow this year and into the future. They employ a significant amount of people and are looking forward to employing more in the city of Philadelphia. And they actually have plans to move into a larger manufacturing facility in Columbia, PA, that will allow them to produce more for the growth that they're anticipating. They also they self-ship. They do the shipping of the materials to all the stores. So it'll be their vans that are making deliveries of the the raw cookie dough and other materials that they need. They have a really strong social media and internet presence, tailoredchip.com, and their social media handle is @tailoredchip. So they're pretty well known. They're quickly growing. I think they would be a great addition to this, the Chestnut Street commercial corridor and Center City as a whole. And they can fill you in more on what that looks like from their end. I think that they really emphasize their social presence, and it's been good for their business. Okay. Just wanted to give you an idea. They offer a wide range of types of cookies. They have high quality ingredients, free range and soy-free eggs, local butter, no corn syrup. I imagine Lancaster, PA, they're probably getting very high quality dairy and other ingredients, and all of their jellies and their fillings and their toppings are all made in-house. So it's a high quality product. Okay, so just a screenshot of the reviews for this specific location. They have 3 open currently in Intercourse, Hershey, and Manheim, PA. So you can see significant amount of reviews, very high score. This is just their in-store reviews. They also have a lot of reviews separately for the large amount of online business that they do. Okay, here's a zoning map. Pretty straightforward. It's all one color. There's a mix of CMX4 and CMX5 here. This is Center City commercial mixed use. Google Maps perspective. We're on that. We're just off the corner where Continental is. We're between Blue Soul Shoe and Bundy Computers. I believe there was a watchmaker here a while back, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. But I believe that the commercial space sat vacant for a while and then underwent some renovations, sort of made these windows bigger. So anyway, this is what it looks like. We're underneath this nail salon and some apartments. To the right of the property, conveniently an Indigo bike station right out front, and to the left of the property. Here's the plans and drawings. I'll zoom in for you. Pretty straightforward. So basically, if you can see where my mouse is right here, that sort of cuts the space in half. And sort of, so we're talking about what the customer can see up here. There's bar seating for 3. There is table seating for 4. They have space for their merchandise to be sold. And then this is the counter service area where they all have ice cream and cookies and coffee. And then there is a prep station in the front here. They feel that it's important that the customer see what's going on, and that the preparation of the cookies and the other items that they could be buying is done in front of them. So a lot of that will be taking place here. The ovens that they have in here are not the type that need to be ventilated. They're more like countertop ovens. And then towards the rear here, you have a restroom for the employees. You have a workstation and a prep table, the sinks for, dishwashing, and then a walk-in cooler and a refrigerator to store the dough balls. And then this is an elevation. It's not as exciting as the renderings that I'm about to show you, so I won't spend too much time on it, but you can see sort of the cross section from the right side and the left side here. Here's the renderings. This is the inside of the store, tastefully designed. You can see the merchandise section. You can see the bar seating and the table seating. Their architect did a nice job putting this together and giving a vision to what they're hoping to put in here. Again, our hearing is August 2nd. The timeline for opening and doing these renovations, they'd like to be open obviously as soon as possible. So they're hoping for early fall of this year. Here's the notice mailings, giving notice to the community of this 7 o'clock meeting on May 23rd tonight, including the notice of referral. 94 properties in total required by the city of Philadelphia to notice. This is those proof of mailing certificates. Here's the lease, just the first and the last page, Taylor Chip, LLC, and the signatures, and then just the application for special exception. So I'm going to briefly unshare my screen so that you can see Sarah and Doug easier. And then, Veronica, if you don't mind, I'd ask them to quickly introduce themselves, and then we can take any questions that you have.
Hi, everybody. I'm Doug.
Hi, Sarah.
And then John, our manager, is also here with us. We figured it'd be a good idea to have him here because he's also going to be helping us and highly involved with this store and Philadelphia as a whole as we get started. So yeah, we're very, very excited to be coming to Philly, be a part of Philadelphia. It's been a goal of ours for a long time. Obviously, coming from Lancaster, Lancaster is a lot smaller, so it's a big step for us, but we have a ton of Philly customers. And so when we were like asking people where we should go, it was between York and Philadelphia, and each one of them got equal amount of votes every time we did things. And from there, it just seemed like all the pieces were being put together. And so, yeah, we're just excited for the potential and the opportunity and to be a part of the community.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for introducing yourselves. And Alex, thank you for a very clear and thorough presentation. Let me now turn to the committee and ask if they have any questions. So we'll go again in order. Charles, Robin, any questions?
Could you just outline your interior trash storage?
Yeah, so Doug, I can take this. I know Doug knows all the answers to all these questions, but there's actually a space in the rear and that connects to an alley. So the trash will be stored outside. I can try to show that on the map if it appears on the zoning map. But the trash will be stored outside, and the commercial trash pickup is handled through the property owner.
Are you saying that the trash is left out on Randstead Street, or is it's maintained internally?
Well, the trash is maintained internally throughout the day, but there's an alley here. I'm not sure if that's the proper term, but there's a space here that you can see right here. That's not Randstead Street, I believe, unless it cuts across and meets that alley. But that it's likely the same location where or connected to the same location where trash for Continental is stored.
So it comes out on 16th Street?
Correct.
18th Street.
18th Street.
So I see there's maybe a gate there that somebody would wheel trash out from?
The trash hauler, likely, yes. And I wish I had the property owner here on the call. But I would imagine that he would probably use the same private trash hauler that's being used by anyone else that's storing trash back here, for the sake of efficiency.
Okay. No, I follow what you're saying. It appears that it's left behind a gate area and wheeled out onto 18th Street, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Assuming no other questions, Doug Meller, any questions? No questions. Flora Becker, any questions?
No.
Thank you. Rick Pasquier, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on trash. So the number of seats is very small. I just want to ask the owners what their operating experience is in their other locations with respect to seating, whether they have more of it, or this has just been done as a accommodation to the expense and size of space and the size of the storefront that's being leased.
Some of our stores have seating, some don't. It's always minimal. So this is kind of based off of our other store. this is almost the same type of seating arrangement here. And if that answers the question, I'm not sure.
And we're limited by code. The prepared food shop definition, you have to be between 3 and 20 seats. So I know that we're not near 20, but that there are guidelines on, in order to fit within the definition of prepared food shop, there are guardrails for seating.
So my concern is that people will be eating out on the street. So, and the thought is that there should be some place for people to throw away trash on the street. And I think Chestnut Street has a number of public trash receptacles. So I just wanted to highlight, it sounds like we're going to be putting a burden on the existing trash receptacles on Chestnut Street.
Yeah, and they're gonna, there will be trash cans for the customers to use, not just the trash that's created, during the production in the back. So, I would go ahead.
Also, right now, over 90% of our volume is from takeout, and takeout from a 6 cookies and larger. For a lot of times, people are getting them for parties later. We hope that that is more here, that people are eating on the spot. But historically, everything's kind of taken and then saved for that afternoon at their house, or if their friends are coming over and whatnot. We have a very shareable product, and so that's usually what we see people doing with it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, Rick?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Rubin?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Weinrauch?
No questions. Thank you.
Bob Lane?
No questions.
Andre Geffen?
No questions. Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Now, let me open it up to the community. Are there any community members who have questions for our applicant? If you're a community member and you do, can I ask you to raise hand or just unmute yourself? All right. I see none. Well, Alex and Sarah and Doug, thank you very much for a very clear and thorough presentation. And thank you also for your time. I think everything is very clear. And we will now move on to the third applicant in today's agenda.
Thank you.
All right. Our third applicant is 2222 Market Street. This is an application for the erection of one flat wall sign above the second floor window sill, accessory to the existing business and professional office in the same building, with all other uses as previously approved. No sign on this application. This is a refusal. And the reason for the refusal is that the proposed sign above the second floor window sill is prohibited in this zoning. And again, this is a refusal, meaning that the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate why the community should accept the change. And so I invite 2222 Market Street to present. Is that Marty Grigorski?
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Veronica. It's Peter Kelson from Blank Rome, and I thank everyone for allowing us to present. With me tonight is Marty Grigorski, who's going to help me share the screen. Robert Wirtz, our sign designer and installer, and Robert Kostar from Morgan Lewis. So I think you're all pretty familiar with this project, with this building, I should say. It's come before the committee a number of times, but let me give a little context if I could. Morgan Lewis's headquarters are located fronting on Market Street, bounded by 23rd Street, Ludlow Street. We have an interstitial property, as you can see here, on 22nd. The building signage is purely accessory, and you'll see it. We consider it to be as minimalist as possible, truly elegant, reflecting the distinctive quality of Morgan Lewis's standing. Marty, next slide, please. A little more context, you can actually see the building rising. And again, major frontage on Market Street at this location. Next slide, please. So in terms of zoning site plan, this will just give you some context. The sign that is before you tonight, as Veronica indicated, is the main identification sign for the Morgan Lewis occupancy. It will be located, if you will, at technically the intersection of Market and 23rd Street. The sign itself will be affixed to the building, but we'll move to another graphic, please. There we go. Now, this will be a rendered elevation. And as Veronica indicated, the reason we're before the zoning board in the CMX5 district, any signage located above the second floor requires zoning board variance relief. As you can see from the location of this sign and the configuration and unique architecture of the building, the hardship that's created is that in order to afford reasonable visible identity and identification of Morgan Lewis's building, it needs to be at that location. The sign itself, as I indicated, are individually pinned letters, internally illuminated channel signage. The dimensions, now we've boxed the dimensions in this slide. The actual letter itself, each letter will be 23 inches, facelit white channel letters as I indicated, but the box, if you will, on the facade spans approximately 58 inches by 322 inches. It will be located approximately 41 feet to the bottom of the sign from the sidewalk. Next slide, please. And little technical detail, as I indicated, the signage will be affixed on a pinned basis to the facade of the building. Acrylic white face. It will be internally illuminated. And again, extremely minimal, about 59.17 square feet total signage at the upper floor level. Next slide, please. Here's a copy of the refusal of permit. And again, as Veronica has indicated, the sole refusal is based on the location of the sign, meaning that it is at above the second floor level. Next slide, please. And the next one. And here's the copy of the certificate of bulk mailing, confirming that we mailed the RCO letters, and then identification of recipients. And next, there is a second sign which is not included in the refusal, but I wanted to make sure that the committee and the public were aware. We have a by right sign. It's located in the entranceway. I'll show you a rendering in one moment. It's, again, Morgan Lewis, 7-inch high letters pinned to the facade element. And Marty, next slide, please. There you go. It's basically a simple but elegant sign that directs the individuals into the lobby of the building. This is a by right sign that has been permitted. The total amount of square footage is, I believe, 5.4 square feet. And we're giving you, I'm sorry, one more time back. Let's go back. I wanted to show the night shot and the day shot. So day perspective, illumination is modest, not even perceptible. The night perspective, it's a soft, glowing illumination for both of the signs. This one is the smaller one. I don't know if, next slide, please. Again, this is the technical detail for the smaller sign. And next, RCO letter. And with that, I would entertain any questions that the board has. I would point out that we are very eager to meet with you, considering that our zoning hearing date is September 20th.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. That was very clear and also very thorough. So thank you for that. Let me now move through the committee and ask the committee if they have any questions. So again, Charles Robin.
Questions?
Doug Meller.
My only question is, why wasn't this taken up before when we had meetings prior to even building the building?
Very fair question, Mr. Miller. The reason being, we had not designed the sign package. Remember, the building was built by Parkway. Virtually all of the meetings that you had were with Parkway. The sign package was developed by Morgan Lewis themselves, and we recently completed it. And as soon as it was completed, made application, and now we're meeting with CCRA.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Flora Becker, any questions? Rick Pasquier, any questions? Steve Rubin?
Just one question. Are there any other occupants of this building, or is Morgan Lewis the sole occupant? If there are other occupants, will they require signage as well?
I can answer that. Morgan Lewis is the sole office tenant in the space, in the building.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ben Weinrob, any questions?
No questions.
Bob Lane, any questions?
No questions.
Andre Geffen, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'd now like to open it up to the community. I'm not certain that there are any community members here, but if there are, I see, yes. Are there any community members who have a question for this applicant? No, seeing none. Well, I'd like to thank the applicant, Peter, and all of your team. This is for a very clear and thorough presentation. This zoning committee meeting must win an award or break a record for its efficiency and way of moving forward quickly. So thank you very much for your presentation. What we will do now is we will move into closed session with only members of the zoning committee. So
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we invite everyone who is not a member of the zoning committee to leave our session. Righty, well, I think that's it. Let me turn off the recording. I will stop the recording.